international economic espionage, fake passports, and billions of dollars hidden in a tangled web of charitable foundations. Today, we know this brand as a symbol of absolute comfort. Yellow and blue megamalls, the smell of fresh-baked goods, perfect Scandinavian living rooms. But what if I told you that behind this glossy facade lies one of the most brutal, cynical, and dramatic wars in the history of global business? A war in which a single man stood up to an entire country, cartel collusion, threats of physical violence, and even his own dark past. Let's go back in time. The Swedish province of Småland, early 20th century. Forget today's prosperous and wealthy Sweden. In those years, it was a land of despair, a cold, harsh region from which people fled by the thousands to escape starvation. For years, local farmers dug boulders out of the frozen ground to grow even a little rye bread. Here, success wasn't celebrated. Here, people simply tried to survive until the next spring. And it was in this very epicenter of poverty, on the half-abandoned Elmtarid farm, that a little boy lived. He had severe dyslexia. He couldn't read properly. The letters jumbled together in his head into a meaningless pattern, and his teachers considered him a hopeless case. But he had something no one else had, an absolute, almost frightening vision of the value of things. At the age of 5, while his peers were playing with wooden blocks, he was already pulling off his first business deals, selling matches to his neighbors for a few pennies. This boy's name was Ingvar Kamprad. And 30 years later, his name would send shivers down the spines of Europe's furniture elite. He would be hated. A total economic blockade would be declared against him. His compatriots would cut off his access to wood, nails, and factories, trying to nip his business in the bud. He would be accused of fascism, treason, and spying for the communist regime during the Cold War. How did a dyslexic man from a poor Swedish village manage not only to survive, but to build an empire that today dictates its rules to the entire planet? Why does IKEA make you buy things you absolutely don't need? And how did an ordinary flat cardboard box save the company from certain ruin? Watch this episode right up to the very last second. Because the ending of this story, the secret techniques of psychological pressure on the buyer, and the true reason behind the insane frugality of the richest man in the world will make you look at every piece of furniture in your home in a completely different light. Welcome to Furniture Hell, which has turned into the most successful empire on earth. To truly understand where Ingvar Kamprad's remarkable, almost phenomenal frugality came from, we must look into his family history and the harsh circumstances of his childhood. The province of Småland in southern Sweden in the 1920s and 1930s was a far cry from today's prosperity. It was a region with a harsh climate, covered in dense coniferous forests and peat bogs. Locals often joked that granite boulders were Småland's main crop. For generations, farmers cleared tiny plots of land by hand of heavy stones just to plant a little oats. Every crumb of bread here was worth its weight in gold, and frugality was not just a habit, but the only way to survive. Ingvar's family owned the Elmtarid farm. They had acquired this farm through immense hardship and colossal effort. His grandmother Fanny was a woman of steely resolve. In the face of a severe crisis and mounting debt, she managed to save the farm from ruin, literally pulling the family business out of a debt pit. Young Ingvar grew up hearing these real-life stories of strict frugality. From an early age, he internalized a basic rule. All resources are limited, debt is a huge risk, and financial discipline is the foundation of security. In this province, a unique Swedish phenomenon took shape, Småländsk klokhet, which translates as Småland wisdom. It is extreme, uncompromising pragmatism. Here, it was considered unacceptable to throw away something that could be repaired or reused. Ingvar Kamprad turned this philosophy into the driving force behind his business. He was only 5 years old when he began his entrepreneurial activities. In those days, there were no large stores in the remote villages of Småland, and the delivery of essential goods was a problem. Ingvar borrowed a small sum of money from his aunt, who helped him buy his first batch of 100 boxes of matches in Stockholm at wholesale price. The boy hopped on his bicycle and began riding around the neighboring farms. He sold the matches for slightly more than the wholesale price, but cheaper than they cost in the distant city shops. The neighbors were happy to buy from the enterprising child. 5-year-old Ingvar put all his net profits into a tin can. Instead of buying toys, he reinvested the money back into his business. By the age of 7, he had significantly expanded his reach. He modified his bicycle by attaching a large basket to it and began selling fresh fish that he caught himself in a local lake. Kamprad had a hard time in school. Because of dyslexia, a disorder affecting reading and writing, letters and numbers blurred together before his eyes. Teachers sometimes considered him incapable of serious study, and reading at the blackboard was an enormous struggle. However, while letters posed a problem, Ingvar's mental arithmetic was flawless. He possessed a unique memory for prices and numbers. While his peers were reading books, Ingvar was mentally calculating the margins and logistics of his trips. By the age of 11, through newspaper classifieds, he had found wholesale suppliers and began selling flower seeds, Christmas cards, imported fountain pens, and picture frames. When Ingvar turned 17, his father, Fedor Kamprad, promised to give him a cash gift if his son could successfully graduate from business school, despite all the difficulties posed by his dyslexia. Ingvar showed incredible perseverance, spending nights poring over textbooks, and passed his final exams. His father kept his word and handed him the money he had earned. Ingvar did not spend it on entertainment. On July 26, 1943, he officially registered a business. This is how the acronym IKEA came into being, consisting of his initials, the name of the family farm Elmtaryd, and his home parish of Agunnaryd. Initially, the company dealt exclusively in the mail-order business of small goods. There was no furniture in the product range yet, but the foundation for a future global empire had been laid. In the early years following IKEA's registration, Ingvar Kamprad continued to operate as a mail-order business. The selection in his catalogues resembled the display window of a small-town department store: wallets, imported pens, stockings, and costume jewelry. The business was growing, but Ingvar was looking for an untapped and truly large niche, and in the late 1940s he found it. After the end of World War II, Sweden entered a phase of rapid economic growth. The government launched large-scale social programs, and mass construction of affordable housing for workers began. Thousands of families moved from cramped rural cottages into new, bright city apartments. But a paradox arose. The apartments were affordable, but furnishing them was practically impossible. At the time, Sweden's furniture market was tightly controlled by a closed cartel, the National Association of Furniture Dealers. It was an influential network of old-school manufacturers and owners of high-end showrooms. Furniture was produced using outdated designs. It was massive, heavy, richly decorated, and most importantly, incredibly expensive. For an average Swedish family, buying a single wardrobe or bed turned into a financial burden. People had to take out loans for several years. Furniture was considered a lifetime investment, passed down through generations. Kamprad saw in this a colossal injustice and a huge business opportunity. In 1948, he made a historic decision. The first pieces of furniture appeared in the IKEA catalogue. These were simple, minimalist wooden chairs and coffee tables that Ingvar purchased directly from small, independent craftsmen in the forested regions of Småland. These craftsmen worked with modest equipment but produced high-quality goods. Since Kamprad bought products in huge batches directly from the factories and sold them by mail with a minimal markup, The prices in the IKEA catalogue were shocking.